Hi there, Skeleton Key here. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my review of my first quarter reading for 2024. And yeah, if you are watching live, please feel free to hop into the chat and say hello, and we can chat about books there. And if you're watching on the replay, also there's the comment section below. Feel free to hop in there and we can chat there as well. And I was thinking about doing, like last year I did the first quarter crisis tag, or quarter one crisis tag. Anyway, I decided not to do that. I reviewed it. I was thinking, oh, let's just do a comparison from year to year. The only thing, though, really to compare, well, there was like a statistic that I don't even really track, which is what genres I read most in. And because I read cross genre, everything I read could probably, well, except for nonfiction, but even then, yeah. Is it historical? Is it? But yeah, I don't really keep track of genres because so many of the books I read defy genre. And even the nonfiction, sometimes it's like, is this nonfiction or And some of the fiction, it's like, well, this is highly non-fictional at its core, but it's only based on the true story, and then stuff is added in. So yeah, I have a real hard time putting books into specific genres. So yeah, so that statistic, I was just like, well, yeah, I don't even track that. And then the only other statistic really to compare was how many books did you read? And so I did make a note of that from last year's video. And in the first quarter of 2023, I read 45 books. And so averages out to 15 books a month. And this year, first quarter of 2024, I read 60 books, and it was 20 books a month. Not just an average of 20 books a month. So, yeah, and so far in April, I've read 6. So, and we've got, what, a week? About a little more than a week to go in April. And yeah, so if I don't get on that, then, and make some changes for the other 2 months of this quarter, that's going to take a nosedive. But yeah, I read 60 books. And so yeah, I'm more than halfway at the end of the first quarter. I'm more than halfway to my Goodreads goal, which is always 100 books a year, because I always read more than 100 books a year. So it's an easy goal to make. But I don't track books on Goodreads the same way a lot of people do, because, you know, I count children's books, I count short stories that have been published as standalones. Sometimes it depends on what my larger reading goal is in the immediate future, whether it's to read the entire collection or just the short story, select short stories in that collection. Or but anyway, I digress. I need to talk about my first quarter reading. Yeah, so one statistic that I am tracking is my average star rating for each month. And it's, I always feel a little weird talking about star ratings like they mean something, but in general, they do. I find them to be a pretty good gut check for, you know, when I use the Goodreads anchors. 1 star is I did not like it. 2 stars is it was okay. And 3 stars is I liked it. 4 stars is I really liked it. and 5 stars is, I think it's like, "It was amazing," or whatever. I forget what the exact anchor is that Goodreads has, but I'm like, "Yeah, I love this. This was amazing," or so, yeah. It's just, and so maybe the line between 4 stars and 5 stars is not very well defined, and it's, yeah. And to me, it's just sort of a gut check, and I may feel differently about it later. In fact, there are several books I was looking through my list of books that I read in the first quarter, and yeah, a lot of them, I was like, I would rate that differently now. And sometimes I will go back and change it. For instance, I did change last year. I changed Colleen Hoover book I read. I forget the title, the breeder lit one. I don't know. For all I know, they're all breeder lit. But yeah, that one. I originally gave it 2 stars because I thought Hoover was at least trying to do something interesting with it. Whether or not she succeeded, that's another question. But I thought she was trying to take it to an interesting place and make an interesting statement. But then I saw an interview that she did, and she doubled down on a lot of stuff that is like, oh, okay, you were not trying to make an interesting statement. You were just trying, okay, got it. What you see is what you get there. And yeah, so I bumped it down to 1 star because without that extra boost of interest, I did not like it. So that does happen sometimes. But anyway, back to quarter one. January, my average rating was 3.6 stars out of 5. And so starting off kind of, I liked it. On its way to, I really liked it. So that's pretty good. But then in February, I went all the way up to 3.95. And that was nice, because 4 is, I really liked it. So all the way, really close. And in March, it dropped down just a tiny bit to 3.9, which, yeah. So I'm pleased. And I did DNF a few things. I mentioned those in their weekly book report, that applied to that. Either that or a monthly wrap up kind of thing. But so yeah, I'm pretty pleased that I tend to be reading books that I like. And another thing I noticed is that I did not give out any 1-star reviews in the first quarter. I don't think I have so far this quarter either, but that's probably going to change at some point. But anyway, I gave out in January. I gave out 2-star reviews, and one of those I would call my biggest disappointment for the quarter, and I'll get to that in a minute. I'll throw up the I will put up the things on the screen, my Goodreads list. And then February, I only had 1 2-star review. And in March, I did have 3, but I had 6 5-star reviews, compared to 4 5-star reviews in February and only 1 5-star review in January. So yeah, January kind of got off to a rough start. Except, the first book I finished in January was pretty good. So let's just go ahead and put that up on the screen now. Gotta move this over here so I can share it. All right, now let's try that again. All right. So scroll down here to the beginning of January. So yeah, the first thing I read was Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe, and I gave that 4 stars. And it has a Goodreads average of 4.23, so I'm right there with them. And I probably would have rated it higher, except that I felt it was a little repetitive. The pacing was a little off, but I think it's a very important read. So that's one I do recommend. But yeah, so 4, 4, 3, 4. So yeah, I'm doing really good. So okay, so my first 2-star read, and that's Snow Glass Apples by Colleen Doran and Neil Gaiman. It's a graphic novel adaptation of a story that Neil Gaiman wrote. And it would be a 1-star, except that because the artwork is so amazingly well done. It's beautiful, even when it's depicting some really ugly things. It's just amazing. It's just it goes really dark, which a lot of times I'm actually okay with, but this went dark in some places. There there is a monster who is well, gosh, that's a spoiler. But anyway, there's I don't even know how to describe that without spoiling it, because it's such a large part of it. But there is sexual content that I find objectionable to me. And I there are a lot of people, I think, who would agree with me. Now, this got 4.08 stars on, and here I'll just, so you can get a better look at the artwork on the cover there. I mean, that is so beautiful. And all of the artwork in there, but of course, there's a heart dripping blood. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. It's a retelling of the Snow White story, and and it flips the story to where, so the queen is not so evil, but I don't know. I think these are a bunch of really awful people, and so they're awful people, and they're doing awful things to each other, and some of it is very gruesome, and yeah. So anyway, if you are looking at reading it, just read some reviews, find content warnings, and see if it's something you're up for. I'm not really disrecommending this, because I think it does have value. It just went places that I don't want to go. And so this was very much a not for me book. And yeah, it apparently a lot of people feel like it has literary merit. It won the Bram Stoker Award for graphic novel in 2019. And I'm not going to argue with that. It's very dark, and I just think you should be aware of what you're getting into, and it's not for children. I will say that it is very much not for children, even though it is a retelling of a fairy tale. So let's see. And I say that as someone who really doesn't believe in restricting what children read. I don't think anything is going to scar a child for life. Um, it's just, I don't know. But children are not the intended audience for this. Let me just put it that way. Um, let's see. So still going back to that. Takes a while to load. Let's see. So then, are you gonna show me? There we go. Doesn't normally take that long. Yeah, there's snow glass apples. Argyle was I've talked at length about Argyle. Let's see if there's anything else that stands out here. So my first 5-star read for the year was Femina, a new history of the Middle Ages through the women written out of it. I do highly recommend that. It wasn't really my top for the quarter, but it's way up there. So I gave it 5 stars. It's got a 4.10 average. And if anything in that title interests you, yeah, read it. If and I would even recommend it to people who don't really have a specific interest in those in that field, but maybe have a casual interest in learning some more. Because it's not a difficult read. I just zipped right through it. So yeah, let's see. Red Hood was another 2-star. One's Company was kind of that was really interesting. I ended up only giving it 4 stars instead of 5, even though it did a lot of really, really interesting things. It's just there were some things that I thought were missed opportunities, or maybe I just didn't understand what she was trying to do with them. Ashley Hudson is the author on that. But it's a really weird book. It's very it sounds like it's going to be lighthearted, but oh no, it is not. So do be prepared for it to be really kind of disturbing, but in a good way. It really actually made me think about a lot of things, but and I don't want to give that away. But I do recommend that one, even though I only gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I read a lot of Poe. And then let's see. Oh, getting into February now. So yeah, I have a couple 5-star children's picture books in here. I think 1 or 2. Yeah, let's see. I don't know. And I mean, they're picture books, but you would think that, and they do. I find them very hard to rate because it's like A Unicorn Named Sparkle and The Perfect Valentine. That was, I mean, it was super cute. It was super sweet. Nice message. And I liked the artwork. It's like, I don't know, they only give you like 40 or 50 pages, sometimes as few as like 24 pages, to actually make this impression on you. And so they really are hard to rate. And so there again, it's just sort of a gut check. It's like, oh, this was really well done. So I went ahead and went up to 5 stars with that one. In retrospect, I was like, it was, I mean, not groundbreaking or awesome metaphors or anything, but let's see. Oh, and so now Leap of Faith, that was the first and that's Memoirs of an Unexpected Life by Queen Noor of Jordan. And that was the first book I read in the 12 of 12, a 12 by 12 reading challenge. And that's to read 12 books recommended by 12 friends. And so that was the first one recommended by my friend Jules. And yeah, I gave it 4 stars, and, didn't go up to 5 because it did cover a lot of faith and religion stuff that I'm like, "That's nice." But it didn't that stuff didn't speak to me. So, so yeah, it's a 4 for me, but I can see it being a 5 for a lot of people, and it did really touch on a lot of topics that even though this is a 20-year-old book, it touched on a lot of stuff going on in the Middle East still today. And I mean, I said it before when I first read the book in February, but um, no, there's no excuse for Israel, the government of Israel, to be doing what they're doing. They are engaging in genocide. It's it's wrong. It's just flat out wrong, and um, it needs to end. And I do appreciate that Queen Noor, when she was the reigning monarch, and now that I think what a grandson or grandson, I forget who's in who's the current monarch of Jordan, but now that she's, I guess, retired, but she's still doing um, a lot of charitable work, a lot of activism, and I applaud her for that. So I really appreciated learning a lot more about her, and um, and what was going on in the Middle East when I was really too young to understand it. Let's see. So, yeah, a lot of 4-star reviews. So here, 5 stars for Daughters of the Deer by Danielle Daniel. And this, I'd say, is my standout for the I don't know, it's really hard. Daughters of the Deer and To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monocle Black Goose. And they kind of go together. And so I would say, as you know, because I read them almost back to back, and they cover a lot of the same things. Um, the colonizers of northern North America, their genocides, uh, their just absolute disregard for native cultures, and to put it mildly, and but they took such different ways of doing it. This one is, To Shape a Dragon's Breath is steampunk, um, and I guess I, I don't know. It had a bit of a YA feel to me, but as an adult, I just really loved it. And I'm told that that imprint does not have, or that publisher does not have a YA imprint. So it's only adult works, books for an adult audience. Um, so even though it did have a bit of a YA feel, and I think in some of the awards categories, it does get put in the YA category, but it's an amazing read, as is Daughters of the Deer. Daughters of the Deer is actually more, it's more historical, whereas this, To Shape a Dragon's Breath, is historical fantasy. It's an alternate history, where the Scandinavians got here and um, uh, took over before the English did, the other Europeans and all that. So they're both really amazing books, and together it's a great pairing because it shows that, Daughters of the Deer is set in what is now Canada. Then it was New France, and so it was the French Jesuits and um, their horrific actions um, against the native peoples of what is now Canada, and whereas To Shape a Dragon's Breath is in what is now the United States. And so they're just different angles on the same problem. And I'd say read both of them together. Yeah, if you can get a hold of both of them at the same time, I would highly recommend doing that. 2 stars, Saving Noah. Yeah, I just thought it was cliche and in a lot of ways and just boring mostly. Um, they're talking about all the twists and turns. I'm like, no, no, this was pretty dang predictable if you ask me. Um, and let's see. And so, here's an example of, this is a 5-star review, Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. And also, I think up here, yeah, I gave 5 stars to Recipes for Love and Murder. They're both kind of, screwball mysteries in their way. And so they're not, deep literary fiction. And so I know a lot of people who just would not give 5 stars to genre fiction like this. But I feel they had underlying themes that really appealed to me. And I mean, Vera Wong's was not just pure and simple, wacky all the time. There were a lot of really serious scenes. My biggest criticism of it is that there's a young child in here who's on the spectrum or neurodivergent. Probably it seemed to me like autistic, but maybe with some comorbidities. But they were having problems with her, with this child not, misbehaving, I guess. And then Vera Wong shows up in her life, and they made Vera Wong's character almost like magical for this child. And this child suddenly started behaving and communicating, um, and I mean, I'm not going to argue that that it isn't important for people um, to provide support to neurodivergent children in the form of people who can get them or help them express themselves. And but it was just a snap like that, and this sudden change. And I like that it was in there, but I think it could have been handled a little bit more subtly, or I don't know. It just seemed to me a little bit over the top that it would be this magical, like turning on a light switch kind of thing. I would have liked to see that developed a little bit more, but then again, that's not really what the story was about. It's a murder mystery. It's not a, at the same time, it is about relationship building. And I did really appreciate the overall sense of community that was developed there and the found family aspect of it. So that's and I just loved it. Every bit of it. I was just like, this is amazing. So yeah, it's genre fiction, but it's I don't know, it didn't feel like fluff to me. And same with Recipes for Love and Murder, and it's kind of a screwball comedy, but there is some really serious stuff there. It goes into a lot of stuff about domestic violence. So yeah, it's genre, but just because something is written for a genre audience doesn't mean it lacks substance. Yeah, another series of 5 stars here. Mona Lisa vanishes. I still need to find a hard copy to look at the illustrations. I'm told I'm really missing out without the illustrations. But even without those, I give it 5 stars. A lot of people didn't like how it jumped around, and that's fair. But I don't know, that just really appealed to me. And maybe it's because a lot of times with nonfiction, if I do have a hard copy, I just flip around, and I never am sure when I've finished a lot of nonfiction books because I do bounce around like that. And The Diamond Eye, I thought, was a really interesting mix. I think her writing style has gotten even better from the earlier parts of this, I don't know, this World War II era stuff. And this was, I guess, Cold War, but also going back into World War II. But I don't know, it was a lot of times I really bounce off of a mix of fiction and nonfiction, but this, I think, balanced pretty well. And it was highly entertaining. And I didn't realize how much of it was fact, and well documented fact at that, until I read the author's notes at the end. And because there was a lot of it that I just assumed while I was reading it, oh, well, this is fictional stuff. It's oh, that was real. So another, and well, I talked about it on a few weeks ago, but The Day the Crayons Came Home, 2 stars. And that's 1.5 rounded up to 2 because I just I hated Duncan. Didn't like Duncan. Let's see. Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. I give it 5 stars. 3.87 is the average. And again, Cassandra in reverse. Average is only 3.56, but I gave it 5 stars. I kind of wonder, I'd be interested in knowing how many people who gave it low ratings were neurotypicals who thought this was just over the top. Because for Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, I actually got to the book club a little bit early, and another member of the book club was telling the book club coordinator how everything was so cartoonish. It was just, her behavior was just so cartoonish. Like, yeah, well, I know people like that. So, must be nice to be neurotypical and have the world built for you to work with you. But I think if you are neurodivergent, you'll probably rate these both higher. Cassandra in Reverse was also a 12 by 12 recommendation, and that was from my friend Caitlin, who has been a guest on this channel before. And back here, To Shape a Dragon's Breath, that was that from Kristen? I think, yeah, that was another recommendation. And so, I've talked about these at length, so I'm probably repeating myself. But anyway, that's 2-star book. Okay, so Cursed Bunny, I think it was just not for me. I don't know. There was a lot of it I just plain didn't understand, and that's, I'm sure, on me. And Two Bad Ants, children's picture book, but artwork is amazing. I love Chris Van Allsburg's art. And it was a really interesting little story. Let's see. Oh, that's getting into April. Sorry. So let's see. Some Agatha Christie. I don't think either of these. I think Why Didn't They Ask Evans is probably better than Lord Edgware Dies. I give them both 4 stars. I, um, I don't think they're her best work, but I mean, most of what she writes is just yeah, so I feel like I'm sort of grading on the curve there almost. It's hard to it's hard to say. And also these are both rereads for me. So that's another thing that's hard to judge. Yeah. And I've talked a lot about Baking Yesteryear. Now here's one I only gave 4 stars to just because it dealt with a lot of subjects that don't appeal to me. It's, one of those heart-wrenching books, it's epic storylines, family drama, and there's a lot of violence and a lot of people being awful. And um, I don't get much out of that unless, of course, there's like a mystery puzzle in there. And then I'm like, ooh, puzzle. But so this was not, I would not have picked this up without it being for a book club. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I read it. I gave it 4 stars, probably more like 4.3 or something like that, just rounded down because it was not a me book, but for not being a me book, it was amazingly well done. It was, the structuring was brilliant. The writing, the prose was amazing. Yeah, there were some, chapters that I read multiple times just because they were so well written. And that's not the sort of thing I do. So yeah, this has a lot of literary merit. It's so the fact that something with so much content that really doesn't appeal to me that I would give it 4 stars, that says a lot for it. So if that is the kind of thing you like, definitely pick this up because you will love it. Let's see. So anyway, I feel like I've probably talked enough about these. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, because if you were watching where I was supposed to, the book report where I was supposed to talk about the March readathons that I did, you might remember that, yeah, my mouse or my trackball mouse started to die, and I had to cut that one short so that I could charge my trackball. And so now I will go to that a little bit. So let's see, we've got March Mystery Madness, Middle Grade March, and Irish Readathon. So let's see. So for March Mystery Madness, and that was the To the Nines theme, I did, let's see, 5. I got all but one of the prompts covered with 5 books. So I read Viva Durant and The Secret of the Silver Buttons, which I've talked about quite a bit already, I believe. And that counted for Dressed to the Nines. And that was the prompt to read a book with formal clothes on the cover. And then I also used that for any other 9. And there were 9 words in the title. So I figured, hey, that's a 9. And then Lord Edgware Dies by Agatha Christie. So it was a British mystery, so it counted for the 999 prompt. And then it was the 9th in the Poirot series. And then A Patchwork of Clues, which was a quilting cozy mystery. That counted for 9 patch, which was a quilt on the cover. And a cat, too. Witchy Whiskers counted for 9 in the title or on the cover. It was part of I think the 9 Lives mystery series or something like that. And then it also counted for the 9 Lives prompt, which was a cat on the cover. Because there's a very sarcastic talking cat named Celine. That was a lot of fun. Why Didn't They Ask Evans? And that was my one for Janelle. Janelle, who's she was a former co-host of this readathon, and she passed away. And so this is the there was another readathon I did in December that had a prompt for Janelle. And so that was Why Didn't They Ask Evans? Because it was one of her favorite Agatha Christie books. So. The one prompt that I did not get to was 911, a first responder story. I was planning to read a book about a midwife, but did not get to it. So that one will roll over to next year. And so I guess I'll save that book for next year, since I had a really hard time coming up with a book for that prompt to begin with. Okay, so I did pretty well with March Mystery Madness. So now middle grade March, there were 6 prompts, including the group read, which was The Mona Lisa Vanishes. The one-word title, I did not finish that prompt. I was planning to read Stuck by Chris Grabenstein. Anyway, I was planning to read Stuck, which was a sort of a time loop story, I believe. But I didn't manage to read any middle grade book in March that had a one-word title. But I did finish the others. Debut was again Viva Durant and The Secret of the Silver Buttons. So that one did triple duty. And then an immigration or refugee story, that was I Lived on Butterfly Hill, about a young girl in Chile who, during it was a fictionalized dictatorship. Her parents, who were doctors, had to go into hiding, and they sent her to a relative in the state of Maine. I do recommend that one. Also just consider that what was I'm sure supposed to be the Pinochet dictatorship was very much fictionalized and compressed into like 4 years, presumably so that our main character would not age out of her own story. But just be aware of that. And I think it's also a really good starting point for discussing fascism and things like that with young children, because I think it's important that they understand that why fascism is a bad thing. And I think I felt like this was a pretty age-appropriate way of doing that. But I'd say also, be open to having discussions with middle grade children when they read this. And also, explain that, no, it wasn't a 4-year regime. It was, it went on and on. And then the next prompt was animal on the cover, and I did The Weirdies Get Weirder. It has a lot of raccoons in it. This one kind of suffered from being the middle book of a trilogy, and I don't know that the third book is even planned yet. I don't know. I see nothing about a third book, but it's obviously, the cliffhanger is pretty clear. If there is no third book planned, then wow, that was a crappy ending. But raccoons are featured prominently in the story. And then lastly, book you feel like you missed out on, and I never did read Bridge to Terabithia when I was a kid, even though I was probably about the right age when it came out to read it. So I don't know why I didn't. It just was not on my radar at all. So I read that. I liked it. It was fine. Didn't really speak to me in any meaningful way, though. All right. So again, just one prompt, the one-word title, that will roll over to my personal challenge next year. And let's see. And then Irish readathon. So I didn't do so well on this one. The group read, I just now got that from the library, the Rachel incident, and I'm also planning to read that. I will go ahead and read it because I need to read it for the BookTube Prize read along thing that I'm doing, since I'm not an official judge, but I'm like, I miss judging, so I'm going to judge anyway. Because I'm a very judgy person. Ask my friends; they'll tell you I'm very judgy. But that's the Rachel incident, which I have yet to read. Well, read it, but the next prompt, and this was book with green on the cover. Does not have to be an Irish author. So I made use of The Day the Crayons Came Home. It's like, oh, there's a green crayon on the cover. Awesome. It was not a complete waste of time. Yay. Then an Irish children's book that was Owl Babies, and I figured out one thing that I think maybe made me like it, and I'm thinking of maybe even bumping it down to 2 stars, even though the illustrations are wonderful. But no, it occurs to me that owls, they mate for life, and if something happened to the father owl, it was not mentioned why there was only a mother owl out hunting for food. And it's like, no, the mother owl usually stays with the owlets, and the father goes hunting. So that, I think, on some subconscious level, I remembered that and was like, this story doesn't make any sense. So anyway, let's see. The next prompt I did not finish, and that was an Irish book related to the number 7. And I think I had picked out a book that had 7 words in the title, and that was the only thing I could come up with related to the number 7. I guess because I think this was the 7th year of this readathon. That's why they picked that. So yeah, but whatever book I picked for that, I'll probably just read it next year. It's like, guess I don't get to read that this year. An Irish book with a cover prompt, and it had a great big long list of things. And I was planning I think one of them was house, and I did find an Irish book with a house on the cover, and I was going to read that, but I decided to make Owl Babies do double duty, and I used the animal prompt instead of the house prompt. Let's see, an Irish book in your favorite genre. So my favorite genre is mystery, and I had several to choose from, and I didn't manage to read any of them. So out of 6 prompts, I managed to read 3. And of course, I will finish the group read this year, but the other 2 prompts will roll over to next year's personal challenge thingy. And let's see. So that, I believe, is it. And yeah, if you have any questions about any of these books, or why I rated things a certain way, or yeah, what if there are any other statistics that you want me to try to figure out, yeah, go ahead and let me know in the comments. And yeah, and I'll take a look and see what I can do. And so let's see. So later this week, or well, tomorrow, and it's already on the schedule. Tomorrow I will be doing my book report for last week, and I will also be announcing all the prompts and everything for tomorrow, for May's readathon that I run. And it will be going the entire month of May. And that is Mysterious Mayhem. So, my favorite genre is mystery, so I got to do it. But I will be doing that tomorrow evening. So I will see you then. And in the meantime, yeah, if you had a good time, please like, subscribe, and oh, and that's another thing. I did hit 100 subscribers in the first quarter of the year, so yay! And I'm over 100. So, I forget what exactly I'm at now, but so I am starting to grow. So yay for getting a little bit of consistency going in my scheduling. But I will see y'all tomorrow, and I'll talk at you later.